Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I see some familiar names out there, but I see a couple that I hadn't seen before too, so that's great. So thank you again for joining us for another of our Zoom panels. I want to also say that, particularly because I know I do recognize some familiar names here. So thank you for all the feedback that a lot of you have shared with us. You've been great about submitting questions and informing us about how this is going for you. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the feedback that all of you have had. So we hope tonight we're going to try something a little bit different tonight, and I'll let Derek explain a little bit, but we wanted to try something a little bit different and try to make this a little bit more engaging for you, especially as we have my boss and our head of school here on the call, who's going to be ready to answer some questions. And I guess just as background, one of the things that I think is a really special part of our admitted student days when they are here on campus in person is that Bob Hill, our head of school, really makes himself very available on those days. And we in fact have a little session just like this one during our live admitted student days where folks can just ask Bob any questions that are on their mind. So our attempt tonight is to simulate that a little bit more and to really kind of give you some focus time with our head of school. So I'll let Derek explain the process here.
Sure, thanks, Chris. So the idea for tonight, and I should start by saying that tonight is going to be recorded. So we do try to record all of the Zoom sessions that we have, and so that you can go back and watch it, but more so other people can see it as well who couldn't be on with us tonight. The idea for tonight is that we want to try to facilitate conversations as best as possible between you, the prospective families, and Mr. Hill and Mr. Dietrich. So one of the idea kind of was born of, for all of the boarding students who typically would come to an admitted student day, the night before, we always had a reception at Bob's house, at Mr. Hill's house, where parents would just get one-on-one alone time with him. Parents would have a chance to kind of ask kind of the questions that they may not want to necessarily ask in front of their kids sometimes. So so tonight is a chance to kind of have some of those conversations with them. For those of you who've been on some of our previous Zoom panels, the people have submitted questions and people have continued to do that for tonight. But also what we have been doing is you would write in your question to the Zoom group chat, and that would come to me and I would pass it along to panelists. Tonight, what I'd like to do is facilitate those one-on-one conversations and let you ask the questions directly. There's too many people online for me to be able to see people raising their hands. So if you send me in the Zoom group chat just to say, I'd love to ask a question and maybe even what it's about, I can then kind of direct it to them to get the discussion going. If you're really shy about it and you'd like to type in a question, I'm happy to ask them for you. But the main thing, as Mr. Dietrich said, is we want to be able to recreate some of the personal connections that you would have with these two if you had the ability to be on campus with us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hill.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Chris. Welcome, everybody, to virtual Williston Revisit Days or evening here. And it's great to have you all on. First thing I want to say is reach out to everybody and hope that you're all safe and practicing, good distancing from other folks, washing your hands all the time and staying as safe and sound as possible, because there's no question but that this is a remarkable moment historically. And I know that we have a community of 11,000 alumni, and we're hearing from all over the world just stories of how difficult this can be. So I hope the folks on this call, you're enjoying family time and playing board games and doing all the fun things that we don't always get to do in our busy lives. As Chris said, I really enjoy our revisit days in person because I try to see everybody and I'm around really all the different events, but there's also one in our house. Derek was kind to say that I hosted alone, but my wife, Catherine, teaches math here. She's there, and we have 2 dogs and 2 or 3 cats, depending on which one is coming into the basement window that we don't know about. So it's kind of a big open family here at Williston for all of you. And I hope to see you in the fall and have you at the reception that we always have at the house then as well. So without really further ado, I'm happy to take your questions. I've been the headmaster for 10 years. and both our children graduated from Williston. Our son is a freshman down in New Haven at Yale. He's now home studying all day long from a room, and our daughter is at Georgetown University, but also working down there, and she's at home. So we've got a full house at the Hill family, but they both really loved their Williston experience. So I can speak as a parent as well to any questions about the school from that perspective. So without any more from me, I guess I'll let Derek go back to wearing his MC hat and give us the questions.
Okay, so thank you. So the fun thing of doing this again is that to see some of the questions that are coming in. So the first one that came in that I think is a good way to start off is just about the headmaster's presence in the community. If you could just comment on your presence in our community, Mr. Hill.
Thanks, Derek, or whoever asked that question. I appreciate that question. I try to get around as much as I can. You know, Williston is not an enormous school, and we're about 410, 420 kids, and we pride ourselves on knowing one another very well and knowing about each other's lives. And I don't really talk about me that much, but I'll say this: I've worked at a bunch of different schools, and I've never seen the faculty as engaged with their students and advisees as here. And just examples of that are I could go to a thirds squash game on a Wednesday, and I see a bunch of adults leaning over the railing of the squash courts, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And they're like, "I told my advisee I'd come watch them play." And I see that if I go to dance concerts or art installations or anything. I go to all those things, which is what allows me to know that the faculty are doing all those things as well. So I don't really see myself a whole lot differently than the teachers here. We're all very engaged and very present.
If I could jump in, I know, because that's a hard question for you to answer, Bob, in some ways. Like, what's your presence like on the campus? And I can tell everybody on this call, I've worked at a bunch of different schools now. I've worked at 5 different schools, and this is hard for him to say this because it feels like bragging, I guess. But I've never worked with another head of school who's been as deeply involved with the student body and with the faculty in their lives as Bob is. I can actually, and one of the things is he's an incredibly humble person about being the leader of this school. And I think even perhaps some of the people on this call can attest. There are often times that Bob spends a lot of time here in the admission office during the days and talks with families. And sometimes I'll be talking to a family when they come to visit Williston and interviewing them, and they'll say, "Yeah, we met a nice guy who walked us up from the building, and he talked about the fact that he used to be an English teacher and he used to work at this school or that school." And I think, and I'll have to tell them, like, "Yeah, that's actually our head of school." They're like, no, I think he's an English teacher. I'm like, "No, he's our head of school. Trust me, it's really him." So students on this call, Mr. Hill is not somebody that's going to be off in his office that you're never going to see. You will, whether you're his advisee or not, you're going to get to know him, and he's going to know about what's happening in your life, which is an amazing thing to have. My advisees comment on it all the time. He actually comes and sits in on our advisory sometimes, so they know him well enough to actually have him be in our advisory. So that's just kind of part of the experience that you're going to have here.
And a follow-up question was written in, which I think is which is relevant here. In what ways do the administrators interact with and impact the student lives? I mean, we know about advising and things like that, but I'll turn it over to you guys to talk about it.
I'll jump right in there because I'm on the hallway of the schoolhouse. It houses many of the senior administration of the school, and in the case of, say, Mr. Talea, who's the academic dean, he's been coaching the girls cross country team for something like 32 or 3 or 4 years. By the way, other faculty coaches are jealous of this. He's never had a losing season in 34 years. He's always been above 500. So our administrators coach, sometimes they teach. The Dean of Faculty, Peter Valine, is next door to me. He's a teacher as well. Kathy Noble, who's the Dean of Students, is always around at all the games and has actually done some coaching as well here. So I think the life of the school is such that we're all kind of in it together, supporting one another as adults, but also the adults supporting the students in many, many ways.
Okay, thanks. So so we have a question that's come in now. This is going to be from Sarah. Forgive me if I don't pronounce it right. Is it Eustace?
It's Eustace, yes.
Okay. So Sarah, you've got the mic.
Oh, thanks. I'm mother of Henry Eustace, who is very excited about his new chapter at Williston. And I guess I have two questions. His father is here in the background. Two questions. One, if you could describe, not from the mission statement and what's on the website, but the culture of Williston in just very few words. I'd love to hear how you express that. And then secondly, I'm interested to know a little bit more between the lines around the 5 college program. Henry is coming as a PG. I'm a Smith alum, and I'm just curious about how deep that goes and how that really works.
Sarah,
All right,
are you trying to trick Mr. Dietrich here with being with brevity?
Yeah, and Sarah only knows me a little bit, but she made her husband and son know that brevity is not my specialty. So,
Well,
Shakespeare said brevity is the soul of wit, Mr. Dietrich.
uh-huh.
Do you want me to start with that?
yeah, well, you start and then I'll yeah.
Okay, I'll start, then you can jump in. It's a
Okay.
great question. You know, I talk about Williston. Again, I've worked at a number of other boarding schools, and I think that the greatest asset of Williston, besides all of the people here, is a culture that that celebrates individuals for who they are. And you know, we have two values that sound like they're contradictory. One is community, but the other is individuality. And there's a tension, and really healthy tension, I would say, between those. But that's where the great things happen. I think the wonderful part about Williston is that, you know, I watch a lot of Derek Cunha's boys hockey games. I go to every art event on campus, and I'll see guys from Derek's team cheering on dancers at a dance concert, or cheering on going to an art installation, or going to a Williston Scholars project presentation to support their friends. There's this incredible crossover among the students that's based on respect for being an individual. So that to me is one of the great attributes of the school. The 5 college piece, I think, informs a lot of our curriculum, informally and formally. Informally in the sense that we have faculty who are reaching out to folks all the time, but we also have professors coming on campus, or others coming on campus and entering classrooms or giving talks, giving lectures, and that can be anything from a student life, healthy choices presentation from the University of Massachusetts Dean's Office, or it could be our kids going to Mount Holyoke for a classical language competition. So there's a whole lot of interaction with the 5 colleges right in our backyard.
Excellent.
Right.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can so knowing a little bit, one of the things I would say, and it's a little bit unfair for me, Sarah, because I know your son, and I know more about him than maybe others do, but I would say one of the ways that Henry's going to get involved in the 5 college area, and this is something Mr. Hill touched on already, but is our Williston Scholars program. Because so Williston Scholars is a pretty neat program that's evolved here at Williston into what is essentially an independent study program where our students work with teachers here, but then they develop a plan, they develop a project, and they immediately are connected with some of the resources in this area. And so I can attest to having had a couple of advisees. I had an advisee a few years ago who did a Williston Scholars project on Roman gladiators and the evolution of Roman gladiators. And he got connected with a professor at the University of Massachusetts, and he actually had Skype interviews with the professor a few times in the beginning. He met him in person first, and then for a couple of times, I think, and then they continued to do Skypes. And he would actually have the Skypes in our house, and so I would listen to these once in a while. And it was an amazing experience to just watch that this guy had this connection with a professor who got kind of excited about it himself. Like, this is a new thing for him, and so I know Henry and I have already talked a little bit about some projects that he might do in that spirit. As far as the school goes, I think I'll work on my brevity here. A few years ago, we worked on a website redesign, and the folks in our communications office, who are a great group of people, kind of tried to come up with some different ideas and thoughts about what would sort of capture the spirit of the school. So when you go on our website, the first things you see are the words "Be yourself here." And honestly, those 3 words are the best way to describe this school. And I really genuinely mean that, because I don't know of another school that I've been a part of that could use that phrase on their website and be more genuine and authentic in that. So that to me is kind of the essence of who we are. So
That's great. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you for the question, Sarah. In terms of another follow-up came in about kind of Williston Scholars. The family should have received an email either from Trevor Corsello or Sarah Kimmel, which described their programs that they did. And I think that gives you a good insight in terms of kind of how the students really do dive into it. I'll speak on behalf of Trevor, who I know very well, and he did a project on on launching a hot air balloon that launched from campus, ended up in Cape Cod Bay, but ended up having all of the data from it and just something that he really dove into. So if you have a chance to go back through some of the stuff that we've sent you, especially those who are really interested in Williston Scholars, you'll get some good insight there, and we'd be happy to connect you with any of the Williston Scholar teachers as well. Along the lines of academics, a question came in, it's probably more geared towards Mr. Dietrich, about when do we get to know who our roommate is going to be, but also for summer work for 2021, when will that be released on the website, or when can people expect to be hearing from us?
Okay, yeah, two great questions. So, summer work, that's a great question. That usually comes around the end of our academic school year. So I would imagine that the calendar is still on track for that, certainly. So I would say that summer work will likely be posted in kind of late May. I would say look out for it in late May, early June. I may be slightly off, but that's probably about when that would be. As far as the roommate matchups go, so that actually is I think one of the best processes that we have here at Williston. Basically, early in June, the entire admission office and folks in our Dean of Students office get together, and each of the admission officers writes a little report about each student that's coming to join us at Williston, and we share that with our academic office and our Dean of Students office. But then the Dean of Students office and the admission office get together and talk about the new students and talk about who they are as people, what they're like, who we think would be some good roommate matchups. We talk a little bit about what each floor in the dorm is going to look like. So we work with the Dean of Students office to sort of decide, okay, on this floor in John Hazen White, here's some good matchups, but here's some new students that could be together. Here's some returners that would make a nice little group in that side of the floor. So we do that all together. Those meetings give a lot of information to Mr. Korikoski, our Dean of Residential Life, who does a lot of the advisor matchups. And so he takes a lot of time over the summer to along with Ms. Pickerel in our office, there's a lot of work between them, and they will coordinate and develop roommate matchups. And they're both asking all of us throughout the summer, kind of, what about this matchup? What about that matchup? So I think we do a really good job. We try to give you that information at some point as the school year approaches. It sometimes takes a little longer because we want to make sure that we're doing the matchups right, but we try to give you that information so that you can make those connections before you get to campus too. So.
Thank you. So so a question that came in was about construction. While on tour earlier in the fall, I noticed the construction of the new dorm. Can you tell us more about the progress of it and who will be living there?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. The new dorm is actually 3 weeks ahead of schedule. As of a meeting I had this morning, I learned that, and it's going to be a wonderful addition to our new residential quad. 40 girls will live there, and 4 faculty homes are built adjacent to it as well. It's a really exciting period at Williston. In the last 3 years, we will have opened 2 new dorms, which have created this new quad that's consolidated our campus and brought us even more tightly together with these incredible spaces for faculty and students. And notably, and others might want to say a little bit more about this, but notably now all of our 9th graders are adjacent to one another in 2 beautiful dorms, and that's been great for class activities and class bonding that goes on for 4 years out. So the new quad that we've developed in the last 3 years with these wonderful buildings that are incredibly dynamic spaces, it's just fantastic. And they were both done with a part of a campaign that fully funded them, and that's a pretty exciting aspect as well. So love to talk about the new dorms, and I'll take any more questions about those if they come up.
All right. So a question did come up, Mr. Dietrich, about are students able to come back in the summer for a revisit they were looking forward to the overnight admitted student day, but is there a way to try to reconnect with the school before that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Obviously, I mean, I guess the important part of this question is we are looking forward to having you and other students back on this campus as soon as we can. And so as soon as the state of Massachusetts and the United States allows us to do that, then we're going to allow that to happen. So our plan, certainly, if things evolve in a certain way, if we are able to have folks visiting us over the summer, we would be more than happy and frankly really excited to have some of you visiting our campus. So yeah, so if it's possible, we've talked to a number of families about that, local, but also from folks that are from further away. We definitely want to have folks visiting, and we'd be excited to host you this summer, whenever that's going to be possible. And the admission folks will be here all summer, and hopefully at that point we can have some of our students come back and visit as well too. So.
All right, thank you. So Bob, I've got Laura, who's I'm going to unmute right now, so she's on the on the screen to ask you a question.
Hi, thank you. So we can't help but be thinking about what you're thinking and what your planning might be in the current situation, about whether you think school will be open in the fall, or just how you're thinking about it, how you're going about it. Those of us who are thinking about coming into boarding school for the first time are faced with, are we going to be going to an online boarding school? Which is just a crazy thing to be thinking about. But can I just get your current thinking on this?
Yeah, sure. And I'm glad you asked that question, and totally understand why it's top of mind. It's certainly top of our minds as well. And I actually I have a pretty big network of professionals from different walks of life in my own stop. So I'm in touch with friends who are college presidents and college deans of admissions and deans of faculty that I've just known over 30 years, and the same with boarding schools. So part of what my answer is going to be informed by what I'm kind of hearing education industry wide. We're going to be open for business in the fall for sure, in person. And while I think that people could say, well, how could you say that? You know, I'm pretty fixated on all the information that I'm seeing, and really even the most pessimistic of experts will talk about things, you know, really tamping down over the summer with respect to the coronavirus. I happen to be a pretty big believer in the scholars and medical experts in the United States and around the world. And so I'm also a big believer that this will be the fastest vaccination ever that's going to come out for this virus. You know, we keep hearing a year plus, but we'll see on that. But I guess what I would say is this, that we haven't really focused so much on what if you know, the school fall would be delayed. And I actually have reached out to a number of colleges and schools to say, are you even talking about this yet? Most of them aren't, but what are not. What I would say is it really will depend on what the whole context is. And let me just throw a scenario out. Let's just say that the opening of school sort of seemed like it was getting delayed in terms of orientation days and things like that. We most likely, I haven't even talked to the administrators about this. My guess is we just shift the calendar out, you know, and there's no magic to stopping school when we do. And if we had to delay a couple of weeks and just start a normal school year a little bit later, my guess is we would do that. And we're prepared kind of for everything, but we're, you know, mostly prepared 99.9% to have all of you here in the fall and all of our students back. You know, we're keeping our smiley teacher faces on, but I have to say that personally, and I know I'm speaking for the faculty, we miss the students and the you know, the presence of everybody on our campus. It's a special person, honestly, who chooses a life of boarding school. Sometimes we describe ourselves as maybe being a little crazy. But the reason we choose this life is because we love the contact and the mentorships that we develop with our students. And we know that happens best here on our campus with all the magic that takes place every day. So So I hope you hear from me a very optimistic, positive, forceful statement that we plan on being open, late August, early September, just like usual.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So the next question that's come in is in regards to kind of religious services, CCD, finishing for confirmation. Mr. Dietrich, you want to take this one?
Yeah, yep. This is a submission that someone who's here tonight submitted a couple of days ago, and so I'm very happy to take this one. And sorry that we couldn't get it in. It was didn't necessarily fit in the other categories. But so one of the students here tonight asked about CCD classes, or if you're involved with religious classes or other things. So we try to do the best we can with regard to our boarders who have obligations outside of the school, and we really do I think a great job of facilitating that in all ways possible. So if you are someone who is from this area and you have something outside of the school that is important, that's a part of your family life, if your family is going to be able to help you get to those things, then we're going to be willing to kind of work with you on those. So we have, I'm thinking about that. We definitely have students who participate in things like CCD or other religious classes that we can either help them get to or their families can help them get to. We've had students who are boarders from very far away who are trying to become Eagle Scouts. So they have to kind of get to a scout meeting. And so we facilitated that. So we really want to do, within reason, we want to really help our students maintain all those other aspects of their lives as best we can. So yeah, the answer would certainly be yes. If you're involved with something that we can help you with here and we can keep that as part of your life, we're going to certainly do whatever we can to do that. So
I could just add to that, Chris. This year we had a wonderful group of kids join us from Mexico who are Jewish students and are part of the Jewish tradition. And when they came to East Hampton, they said, how do I get to Temple? How do I keep that going? And we had any number of people swoop in and say, we'll get you to all the services you want to go to. And I would say in my 10 years here, that really applies to all the faith traditions. And I'm thinking of Mr. and Mrs. Conroy, who've been here a long time, and they're known for taking kids on Sundays who want to go and join the church that they've always belonged to. So very spiritual, a lot of spirituality in the Pioneer Valley in our immediate area, a lot of faculty who participate in that too, and it'd be pretty easy to get you to where you need to go.
I got to go to Rosh Hashanah services, Mr. Hill. I got to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. So the next question that came in was about, can you tell me about some of the favorite traditions at the school?
Ooh.
Where do you start? Go ahead, Mr. Dietrich.
This could be, well, I'll say this could be, you want to do a little back and forth for a while?
Yeah, you give me one, I'll give you one.
All right, I'll start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually we'll go basic to big here. So I actually, to be honest, I think one of the new traditions that I really, really love about Williston is our welcome days. The days that we have when you arrive on campus. I think we do a phenomenal job as a community welcoming our new students. And I think it's one of those moving in days, welcome days for us is actually a really, really memorable thing for families. I think we do a great job of connecting new students and their families with the faculty members here. So I'd say that's a pretty favorite tradition, and I'm excited about welcome days in September.
All right, well, I'm going to say, picking up on that theme, all school community dinners, dressed up coat and tie kids, and dressed up kids 3 times in the fall, 3 times in the spring.
All right, we can keep going. Let's go. I actually really love senior night. So the seniors right before the end of the year have a night where we have a prom, a big dance that they go to, a spot to do their prom, but then they come back and we close down our athletic center and all the seniors go at night. And I personally love the 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift for senior night to go down and play basketball and pick up a spike ball and that sort of thing with my advisees and their friends. So
I'm going victory bell. I'm going the ringing of the victory bell when a victorious team comes back from an away school or from our own campus grounds. So, maybe seeing the crazy swimmers running through the middle of the winter up from the pool to ring the victory bell.
All right. I'm going to leave one on the table for you. I'll go You know what was a really great tradition, and we can't always do it, is Winter Wonderland. A few years ago, we started a Winter Wonderland in the middle of February. It was so cold, and when the pond freezes over, they can actually plow the pond so that you can have a little skating rink. And students had a hot chocolate area, and they put lights on the rink, and they did an ice sculpture contest, and they built a humongous snow couch that they called the Snowfa, which lasted about 3 weeks. So that was pretty good.
There's a sample. That's pretty good. That's a sample of them. How'd we do, Mr. Cunha?
Pretty good. So I just pulled it up. So we did this with two of our students and Miss Davy the other night on the student panel. So so some of the things that were said. So Miss Davy had Willimpics.
Oh yeah,
Why Not Speak Day, the cookies and milk delivery over the holidays, and the tandem coffee house night was the four that Miss Davy went with. Grace, her list was Willy Gras, ringing the victory bell, Halloween on campus, and homecoming. And then
I was
Noah's
trying to
list.
leave Willy Gras and Willimpics on the table for Mr. Hill, but he didn't pick up on him.
I want to do Painting the Lion. I can't believe that hasn't been said yet.
That's true.
And then so Noah's list had the lacrosse team bowling outing, Painting the Lion, the water polo team jumping into the pond, and his was the last one, the baby geese returning to campus to indicate the sign of spring.
But the water polo team jumping in the pond never actually happened. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
That's not a school condoned activity.
School rule thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we'll build on that then about safety. So it came up then, just a comment on the safety of the school and the location.
Oh, I'll jump on that. I mean, we're in this beautiful town of East Hampton, which is just awesome because kids can walk to just about everything they could possibly want to get, including incredible food. But right next to us is the city's, police and fire department safety complex. In fact, I think people sometimes when they don't know the campus drive in and think it's part of Williston's campus. So it is right next to us. And any number of times we'll have coffee with the police chief and fire chief, and the school has an incredible working relationship with the city in all ways, but especially in the safety areas as well. So I think we've got it. I think we've got it kind of made in that regard.
I would just jump on that too. The location-wise, Mr. Hill noticed this, but I realized this in another panel. I usually tell families, I had miscounted. I tell families that there are 16 restaurants within walking distance of the Williston campus, and we did a little rundown on a panel last week, and I realized I was wrong. It's actually 21. So there are 21 different restaurants that our students can walk to from our campus, which are all included within the bounds of our wider campus boundaries. So pretty amazing. That's not something that many boarding schools, actually, I don't really know of any that can say that.
All right. So we're going to go to Lupe. I've got Lupe on got that mic on for you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. You get the mic.
What's the dress code for girls?
So I can get corrected here by colleagues, but we don't really distinguish our dress codes by gender. We say that students have to look neat and presentable. There's a list of things that fit that category, and then if you choose to wear what's on that list, that's fine. So I may be sort of a head fake for you because you don't really see people wearing a jacket and tie unless they want to. And just this year, in fact, the difference between the way Mr. Cunha and I are dressed, I have a tie and a jacket. He doesn't have a necktie on, and he's perfectly within the dress code for faculty now at the school. So it's a pretty, I don't want to call it relaxed because we look relaxed, but we also look neat. And it again, it doesn't conform to any kind of single gender model. Mr. Dietrich, do you want to add to that?
No, that's exactly. I mean, that's spot on, Mr. Hill. Yeah,
okay.
I would say that it is the term relaxed is a trickier one, but I do feel like our dress code for most of our students is a little bit more comfortable than it might be in some other schools where folks have to dress up a little bit more. So we want you to look professional and ready for your day, but without all the traditional pieces that we might be wearing tonight.
So I'd like to pop back if I could, Derek. There was something that we were talking about with Williston Scholars before, and I couldn't help but think that Mr. Dietrich has an advisee, and I got to hear his Williston Scholars. And Williston Scholars is our sort of high end for juniors and seniors, independent study, deep research, and college level research that always ends with a public, a public component to it. So I went to the talk by Mr. Dietrich's advisee, which was all about the history of immigration in this country. It's a very pertinent topic right now. History of immigration in this country in the 20th century by president. And it made me think of the incredible academic opportunities that are here that tie into the intellectual capital of the 5 college region, that have to do with the incredible faculty that we have and their interest levels. We have practicing artists teaching art. We have, former, our dance instructor was a former Rockette from New York City. We have people who do the things that they're teaching in their own time, whether they're published authors or published poets. I think that gives Williston an incredibly rich sense of academics among the faculty, and then obviously to the students. And we're a school that believes in the advanced placement program. We have 24 advanced placement courses, and our students do incredibly well in that. And then they get recognized by all these wonderful colleges. And I just kind of wanted to add that aspect of it, because my mind is always thinking about different questions that have come before, and I definitely wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you. And before Mr. Dietrich takes over, we're going to be wrapping it up soon on the panel. If there are other questions that want to be asked, please, this is your time to write into me on the group chat, and we can maybe try to squeeze one more in, but I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Dietrich.
Yeah, just to add to what Mr. Hill said, I think Williston Scholars is a really interesting example and a good paradigm to look at to talk about a little bit about the range of academic life here too, because I think about my own advisees who've done projects in that program, and Mr. Hill's referring to a young man who is bound to a really, really strong, amazing opportunities in college, and he's a multiple AP student, and his project frankly showed that. But I think back to some other advisees who've done Williston Scholars projects or who've tackled big projects like that, who are not students who are in AP classes, who are not taking multiple APs, and for whom doing a Williston Scholars project and doing a big presentation is a huge step and a huge capstone for them. And I love that about our programs, that when you look at our college list, you see some amazing places, you see some really, really strong college placement. And when you go and sit on our AP classes, you see these amazing scholars and these folks who are bound to or are headed to amazing new academic opportunities when they leave Williston. But I also love the fact that those same programs are available to students for whom that's a huge step, right? To get up in front of people and do a 15-minute presentation on a project that you've spent a long time, and that's a nerve-wracking and anxious project for them, but they do it because they feel comfortable here doing it. So I love that about this place, that we really encourage everyone, no matter where they come in, we encourage them to be the very best that they can be on all fronts, certainly primarily in the academic front. So
okay, thank you. So so this one just came in, and I think it's probably a good way to end on it. I'm going to try to shorten it here, but in terms of international students, in terms of being a little bit shy, nervous about making this jump, how international students are incorporated into our community, and what they can expect when they step foot on campus.
Oh, that's a great question. I think it goes back to the heart of that, one of those very early questions which was asked about the essence of Williston that you don't get off the website. And I think it has to do with the respect of every individual here. And so that applies to all of our international students. We have about 30 countries represented at Williston in about 25 different United States. I love that. I mean, I think that if young people don't get to know one another from around the globe at this age, then our future isn't nearly as bright as it would if they all did. And so we reap the benefits of our international student population bringing their cultures here. We have an office with a director of international student programmings, so we give a lot of direct attention to that. We have Williston Around the World nights in our dining commons, where we celebrate the foods and the traditions of other cultures in the dining commons. Those are always very popular. Our advisor system ties very closely into to families from around the world. Thankfully, we have these kinds of technologies that help us do that. So I would just say, if you're coming from far away to Williston, you couldn't come to a better school that celebrates all international students, all kids from wherever they come from. We're very proud of that, and we take the fact that families send their children so far away. We take that as both a real privilege and then a real sense of duty and obligation on our part.
Thanks, Bob. So I would like to thank everybody who's been on with us tonight, especially those who spoke and asked questions live to Mr. Dietrich and Mr. Hill. Our students are certainly see these as very approachable people on campus, and so I appreciate you taking that leap to ask those questions directly. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dietrich to wrap it up for us, please.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Cunha. Yeah, echoing Mr. Cunha, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, many of you, I really appreciate, love seeing some of those familiar names, and then also love seeing some new folks tonight too. I would continue the one thing we really want to make sure that we as admission officers want to make sure that all your questions are answered too. So we really encourage you to, if you'd like to set up time to talk with us or to talk with some specific people here at Williston, please do reach out to us. We really want to try to connect you. We're going to send a note out to you later this week with some direct contacts. But if there's anyone that you want to speak with at Williston, just get in touch with us. And I'll throw in the shameless plug for our next couple of panels. I know tomorrow night we have at 7 o'clock, we have a panel with our college counseling office, which should be awesome. And then at 7:30, we're going to have a panel with our visual and performing arts department. And then starting later this week, we're going to actually we started our online classes last week, and there are a couple of our teachers that are excited to share those opportunities with you. So we've got some links that are going to go up on our welcome page for some live classroom opportunities, so you can tune into classes and watch those. So I know many of you are engaged in your own virtual classes now, but I hope that maybe within your schedule you might be able to pop in and watch a little bit of BC Calculus, or maybe some AP English language classes. So we're going to have a number of different opportunities for you. So please keep tuning in, and please ask us any questions that you have.